Hello everyone, warm welcome back to True to Form with myself, Sam Turner, and a special Derby edition. Of course, 246th renewal of the great race on Saturday at Epsom. Promises to be a cracker as well. 20 left in at the 5-day stage, including a couple of French supplementary horses. Delacroix topping the market. Could he be a bit vulnerable over this trip? Could Ruling Court be vulnerable over this trip? Well, wait and see. I'm going to go through all 20 runners with a short, swift appraisal, come up with a conclusion. Fingers crossed we'll nail the winner. Strap yourselves in, let's get going. So top of the list then is Al Wassell Storm for Owen Burrows, who gets 2 stars. Now, he's a lad who represents an owner who's got a really good record in this race with some huge prized horses. I think he had the 4th and 5th last year, the runner-up in 2022 and 2020. And this lad of his displayed a really admirable attitude and plenty of tenacity as well to win at Chester and shed his maiden in a 1.5 mile event there. It looked a pretty modest contest at the time. He was very easy to back in the market pre-race, but he still managed to get the job done really gamely. There are no stamina issues, of course, with him, but I do think a podium finish is the best that Connections can hope for with this lad. Second in then, Damasus, John and Thady Gosden, of course, one of 2 runners for them in the race. He gets 4 stars. Now, he looked to be learning on the job at Sandown first time back in a minor race there, that Derby trial that they run at one of their early meetings. But he did take another sizable leap forward in the Dante when keeping on really well from an uncompromising position in the straight. He clocked the fastest closing 3 furlong sectional on the Naesmire, which suggests that he's not lacking in speed. Although his optimum trip might be a 1.25 miles in time, he has got a chance of getting this 1.5 miles. He's a very intriguing runner if he again steps forward. Delacroix then, Aidan O'Brien, 3 stars for him. A fluent winner of the Ballysacks and the Derby Trial Stakes at Leopardstown, the last of which was run in a bit of a crawl and was a stop-start gallop. Both those races, of course, over 10 furlongs, and he arguably threw away the futurity last autumn at Doncaster when hanging that day. His sire often throw up horses which stay well, of course, Debarwy, but his latest defeat of Purview was, as I say, in a very stop-start gallop. And there's just a little bit of a question mark when you look at his cadence and his stride data, whether this 12 furlongs will really see him to great effect. He's got plenty of pace, speed to burn, this lad, but just whether that 12 furlongs on exacting track like Epsom is going to bring out the best of him is a little bit open to question for me. So he just gets 3 stars, even though he's anti-post favourite. Green Storm then, Charlie Johnston, 1 star. His owner's back again with another huge price horse, 200 to 1 at the time of recording. Stamina should be no issue for this son of Circus Maximus, as he's out of a 2011 Ribblesdale Stakes winner in Ban Empire. However, he was well beaten in the Fielden, and although that race is throwing up some winners, he's got plenty to find on evidence of his bare level of form so far. Right, 5th on the list is Lambourne, Aidan O'Brien. He gets 4 stars for me. Really taken with this lad in the Chester Vase. I think Connections feel that he lacks that sort of push-button acceleration that 1 or 2 of his stablemates managed to enjoy and display in their races. However, I think he makes up for that with tenacity and a great will to win, as he showed at Chester. He was learning on the job a little bit that day, but the acceleration that he found was really stark. Just checking my data there, he was quicker from the 2 furlong marker than the 100 rated 6 furlong sprinter Hammer the Hammer, who won for Kevin Ryan that day in really good style. So that suggests to me that Lambourne isn't that short of speed. He stays very well. We know he gets 12 furlongs well. He's got some form with Delacroix, where he was staying on very strongly in the Ballysacks. I just thought that was a really taken performance at Chester. I think any double figure about him is a very good each way bet. So Lazy Griff has certainly picked up this season where he left off last season. A really good second in the Chester Vase, only giving way late on as Lambourne came powering past him under Ryan Moore. That was a really encouraging comeback for Charlie Johnston's horse, who gets 3 stars here. His sire won a German Derby and a Melbourne Cup, of course, and I think this lad is probably the best of his progeny, certainly on ratings. I think he'll be staying on while others have cried enough. It's just whether he has that touch of class to stay in touch with the main protagonist when the heat really gets turned on, turning for home. Maidac, Francis Graffard, gets 2 stars. He's the first of 2 supplemented horses from France. Of course, he runs in very famous colours. whose owner will be remembered in this race this year. They've obviously got Calandagan as well, with a great chance in the Coronation Cup, so it could be quite an emotional weekend for Connections. He's compressed his education into quite a narrow time frame. Didn't have a run as a 2-year-old. He had a setback, and that just left him as a 3-year-old who's making his debut in the early spring. He's won 3, including a Songclue Group 3 in Ready Style last time out. He's stable, and certainly his handler, very shrewd Connections. They wouldn't be supplementing if they didn't think he had a chance at 75,000. But his colt would have to leave the bare form behind to mix it with 1 or 2 really talented horses here. New Ground is the second of the supplemented horses from France for Henri Devin. Just gets 1 star, I'm afraid. Unbeaten in 2 starts over staying trips as a juvenile. He hasn't quite progressed in the manner that you would imagine this year. He'd been beaten twice in a Longchamp Group 3 in a listed event at Chantilly. He needs to step forward again, but Connections really feel the mile and a half is going to suit him ideally, and we've yet to see whether that will actually be played out or not, but he really does need to leave behind 1 or 2 modest efforts this year in the context of this level of form that's required to win this. Nighttime Dancer, another big price horse for Richard Hannon, who's obviously had horses placed at big prices in this race before. He only gets 1 star though. He's a lightly raced son of Gaeth, who appears to be improving with his racing and the experience that he's accruing from his outings. A good winner over 12 furlongs at Southwell. Just a little bit disappointed with his finishing effort in the Lingfield Derby trial as 2 Aidan O'Brien horses strode away from him in the last 100 yards. He sort of just curled up a little bit. I think he needs some pretty serious improvement to figure here. And Nightwalker, the second of the John and Thady Gosden trained horses here. He gets 3 stars. He was verging on 4 for me. I just wonder whether he's got that tactical speed to lay up round Tattenham Corner, and he did get a little bit unbalanced in the Fielden Stakes as well. But I think he's a really interesting contender here. The handicappers will have you believe that he improved a stone in the Dante. I love the way that he finished off that race on the Naysmar. I just wonder whether a mile and 6 in time and something like the St Ledger are going to be his optimum conditions. He possesses one of the lowest stride cadences in the field, which is a sound indicator that this trip will suit him ideally. And if he can just hang on to the coattails of those horses as they sweep down Tattenham Corner, really do think he's got a major place chance. So Pride of Arras then gets 5 stars for Rafe Beckett. He bucked the trend of most of his stablemates this spring by managing to win first time out. They couldn't buy a first time out winner, could they, the stable? But this lad managed it at a big price, 18 to 1 in the Dante Stakes, travelling like a good one. Quick and through when the gap presented itself to Ross Orion, one with a degree of comfort and style at the line with a host of very nice horses behind it. That strikes me as the best trial that we've seen this spring and early season. He possesses more speed than Westover, according to Connections, who was 3rd in this race in 2022. And I think he just appears to have all the attributes required to go close, providing he copes with the atmosphere, of course. Just whether that party vibe is going to really play to his strengths or not. He can be a touch edgy, but he coped with walking across the Naysmire. He coped with a decent-sized crowd there at the May meeting. And I think he looks the bet for me at around 9 to 2 or 5 to 1 in this race, with any amount of progression still to come. Puppet Master then for Aidan O'Brien, one of his quartet, 2 stars for him. He was perhaps a shade fortunate, I think most onlookers would feel, in the Lingfield Derby trial to win by a short head from his stablemate Stay True, who was very respectfully ridden. We'll leave it at that. He is a tough and genuine stayer. He does deserve his place in this field as well at a big price, but I think he'll lack the class to make a serious impact with 1 or 2 very talented colts in opposition. Same could be said for Rogue Impact in some respects for James Owen. He gets 1 star. He really impressed me when landing a Lingfield maiden in a strong time over a mile and a half, and he beat subsequent Chester winner Al Wassell Storm that day. Very easy to back though before the Lingfield Derby trial. 6-runner affair, he went off 22 to 1. That was really disconcerting. He ran a race which was pretty synonymous with the way the betting went that day. It'll be the biggest shock for me in 246 runnings of this race if he manages to oblige, even though we've seen James Owen pull some serious rabbits out of some serious hats in the past few months and years. Ruling Court then, we'll get to him now, Charlie Appleby. He gets 3 stars, the Guineas winner. He's displayed plenty of pace, I think, to win at Meydan. I mean, he looks like an absolute superstar that day, admittedly against some very weak rivals. And of course, he beat Field of Gold, who subsequently won the Irish Guineas, pulling a cart at Newmarket. So 2 really good performances over the mile. Looks like a mile and a quarter will certainly be within his remit, but would he really want a stiff mile and a half at Epsom, a strong gallop, 20 runners? I just have my doubts whether that is his absolute optimum test, Rudy Court. And I wonder whether he'd be the type of horse that would come back to a mile and a quarter in time for something like the Eclipse a little bit further down the line. But really, really top quality prospect. Just doesn't really float my boat at around 4-1, given those misgivings about his trip and his stamina requirements. Sea Scout then, Simon and Ed Crisford, 1 star for him. He boasts some valuable course knowledge, really, courtesy of that trial win in the spring when he sprung a 40-1 surprise. And he actually beat a French Derby 4th that day, unbeknown to us at the time, in Trinity College. He's been behind a number of rivals, though, in the Dante, and he was a little bit keen that day on the Naismile, so we need to settle here to get the mile and a half a lot better. I just have my doubts about whether A, he's classy enough, and B, whether he will get the mile and a half, run at a good gallop as well. So 1 or 2 misgivings really about Sea Scout. So Stanhope Gardens provides a second string, a very useful second string for Rafe Beckett, and gets 3 stars. He's undergone a rather unorthodox preparation, this lad, having won a 3-runner Salisbury affair last time, beating a stablemate in a canter just a fortnight before this assignment. However, he did chase home Ruling Courts at Sandown on his debut, and then he was narrowly touched off by Delacroix in the Autumn Stakes. So there are bits and pieces of his form when you look back as a 2-year-old that suggested he's vastly overpriced, really, at 18-20-1 for this race, even given that unorthodox preparation. I think he gets 3 stars, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him run a massive race over this new trip. Tennessee Stud then represents Joseph O'Brien and gets 2 stars. He was a Group 1 winner in France as a 2-year-old, far from disgraced on his comeback in the Leopardstown Derby trial, which, he put in some good late work off really modest fractions, so that wasn't going to be run to his strengths. It was more likely to be run to Delacroix. That stop-start gallop really just didn't show him off in the best light, and I think a yard that are more than capable of delivering a shock or two, I think he could outrun his odds at 66-1. Maybe with 1 or 2 firms who might offer 4 places on the day, he could be of some interest. I think there's more to come from Tennessee Stud. The Lion in Winter then, well, what do we make of the Lion in Winter? He's a real conundrum, this horse. He gets 2 stars for Aidan O'Brien. I think this, victory would rank as one of Aidan O'Brien's greatest achievements if he could get this horse back to win. I thought that last year with City of Troy, but I think the way that Lion in Winter went at York, surely a big crowd at Epsom on Derby Day with the band playing and the funfair going, it might well fry his mind, this lad, even if he does show up. We don't know at the time of recording whether he's going to be a runner or not, but he remarkably did exceptionally well to finish within 4 lengths of Pride of Arras, given his sort of pre-race antics, his histrionics through the first part of the race. I mean, how many horses do you ever see run away with Ryan Moore? Hardly any, but this lad managed it. Now, whether he's got that fizz out of his system and he's going to be a more settled horse who's prepared to just consent to race properly, I don't know. The stiff sort of 2 or 3 first furlongs where they climb however many 40, 50 feet might just get him to drop his head a little bit. And if he gets a good draw and can get some cover, you could see him running a better race. But there's a lot of ifs and buts factored into that price. It's entirely impossible to predict what we're going to see here. I think it was only the horse's natural ability, latent ability, that got him, within 4 lengths of the winner at the Dante. Is this test going to play to his strengths? Who knows? He gets 2 stars for me. I couldn't possibly back him. Tornado Alert, Syed bin Saror, imagine him winning a Derby. That would be a bit of a shock to the system. 1 star for him, though. He's a well-related colt by Too Darn Hot, and he just raced too freely in the 2000 Guineas. Now, is that general enthusiasm and exuberance on his first run back, or is that a trait of his that we're going to see here repeated, and it's going to make him difficult to see out the 12 furlongs? I mean, he's less than 5 lengths behind Ruling Court and Field of Gold. It's a really good run in its own right, but I just have a suspicion his running style isn't going to play to what's required in this race. And although he is related to Perseus Way, who's a 2-mile hurdler, I think that's a bit of an anomaly, and I'm not sure that he's going to be a middle distance horse going forward. We'll wind up then with Tuscan Hills, Raphael Ferrer. I give this lad 3 stars. I thought he ran okay in the Dante. There were a lot of noises before the race that he was going to need the run. The stable or connections. I've had King of Steel at 66 to 1 and Mojo Star at 50s, hit the frame in recent years. So I know that's not going to make this lad run any quicker, but he looked a decent horse as a juvenile. If he steps forward from York, I can certainly see him running in the first 3 or 4. I think the conditions of this race will suit him. I think he'll stay, and I think he could run a decent enough race for his rookie trainer. So Tuscan Hills gets 3 stars from me. So after all that, then what do I fancy to win the Derby? Well, as you know, 5 stars was only allotted to one horse, and that was Pride of Arras, who represents his owner breeder, Rafe Beckett and Ross Orion. It'd be magnificent to see Pride of Arras win the Derby and just prove that racing isn't a closed shop, just open to the millionaire philanthropists. I've got a lot of time for this horse. I thought the way that he moved through the Dante was exceptional for a horse just having his second run. He was very easy to back. The stable couldn't buy a first time out winner, and yet he managed to put that race to bed in a matter of strides, showing good turn of foot, good staying ability, a high cruising speed. He doesn't lack pace, but he also stays well, this horse. And I think looking at his stride cadence at 1.5 miles, he could be even better over that trip. So fingers crossed he gets a good draw, gets some cover early on, and can deliver the performance that I think he's capable of. Of the others, I like Lambourne. I think his Chester Vars win was a really good win. I think he's 10 or 12 to 1. I think that's a very solid each way bet. I think those that are sort of belying his lack of speed, well, they perhaps should line up the sectional times from those closing races, or those closing sectional times at Chester, and you just see how he lines up against the 2 sprint races on the card. He doesn't lack a gear, this lad. I thought it was a really taky performance. He stays very well, clocked a good overall figure as well, the best that I've got in the race. I think 12 to 1 for him is a good bit of value. And I can see Night Walker running a really smart race for the Gosdens and Damius. Those would be my other 2 that I think they'll excel at Epsom over 1.5 miles. My only slight concern with Night Walker is just whether he handles the Canberra at all. I think the 1.6 miles at Doncaster in September is absolutely tailor-made for him. And you might think about having a little bit of an anti-post pop at that if you can get some St Ledger prices. I know it's a long way away, but he is related to Logician, and I think that's the way that he's probably going to end up. So there you are then, Pride of Arras for me, Lambourne to chase him home. Enjoy the race. Thanks very much for tuning into this special edition of True to Form. I'm Sam Turner. I'll be back with you soon.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.